A sophisticated computer was built more than 2,000 years before the modern digital age. This single fact invites us to reconsider everything we know about technological progress. We are about to explore 20 ancient innovations that anticipated modern technology by millennia. By the end, you will see human history not as a slow climb, but as a story of brilliant flashes of insight, some lost for centuries. How did a Roman cup contain secrets of nanotechnology, and what powered a legendary weapon that burned on water? What does it truly mean to call an idea ahead of its time? The Antikythera Mechanism did not emerge from a vacuum. Its intricate bronze gears are a testament to a world already thinking in terms of systems, cycles, and precise mechanical representation. To understand why such a device was even conceivable, we must leave our modern labs behind and walk the sun-baked streets of Alexandria or the shaded colonnades of a Greek academy. Here, innovation was a conversation between hand, mind, and the natural world. A potter observing the vortex in his clay, an astronomer tracking the predictable wanderings of a planet, an architect calculating the load a stone arch could bear. These were the research and development teams of antiquity. Their breakthroughs sprang from a profound and patient observation of principles we still rely on: leverage, fluid dynamics, celestial motion. Civilizations across the globe, from the philosophers of Greece to the engineers of China and the astronomers of Mesopotamia, were building vast libraries of practical and theoretical knowledge, often without any knowledge of each other's work. This isolated brilliance is key. It challenges a comforting modern narrative that technology is a straight, upward line of progress where we are always at the pinnacle. Instead, it reveals a more fascinating pattern: human ingenuity, when presented with a specific set of challenges and a deep well of observational data, can arrive at shockingly sophisticated solutions independently. By seeing these ancient creators not as primitive ancestors but as brilliant contemporaries working within their own advanced frameworks, their inventions shift from being mysterious flukes to logical, even inevitable, triumphs. This reframing is essential because it makes the precision of what comes next not just surprising but profoundly meaningful. The device was found not in a grand library, but in the silent wreckage of a merchant ship, resting on the seafloor for 2,000 years. When sponge divers first pulled it from the waters off Antikythera in 1901, it was a corroded, unrecognizable lump of bronze and wood, seemingly just another piece of ancient scrap. For decades, it sat in a museum case, a curiosity. Then, researchers began to look closer. Using advanced imaging techniques like X-ray tomography, they peered inside the calcified remains, and what they saw rewrote the history of technology. This was not a statue or a simple navigational tool. It was a machine of breathtaking intricacy, a clockwork universe contained in a wooden frame roughly the size of a shoebox. We call it the Antikythera Mechanism, but its creators would have known it as a demonstration of cosmic order, a physical model of the heavens. By turning a hand crank on the side, an operator could advance a complex array of at least 30 interlocking bronze gears. These gears did not just turn in a simple circle. They were designed with a subtlety that still astounds engineers today. One particular assembly, known as a differential gear, was used to account for the moon's irregular orbit, showing its changing speed in the sky. This precise mechanical feature would not appear again in any surviving artifact until the sophisticated clockworks of the 19th century, a gap of over 1,800 years. So what did this ancient computer actually do? Dials on its faces, marked with fine Greek lettering, displayed the positions of the sun, moon, and likely the 5 known planets. It predicted lunar and solar eclipses with remarkable accuracy, not as mystical omens but as calculable celestial events. One dial even tracked the 4-year cycle of the Panhellenic Games, including the Olympics, tying the cosmic calendar to the cultural heartbeat of Greece. This was a device for prediction, for planning, and for philosophical wonder. Its very existence is a thunderclap in our historical understanding. It tells us that a level of mechanical engineering and astronomical knowledge we associated only with the Renaissance was alive and thriving in the Hellenistic world. The mechanism was not a one-off miracle. Inscriptions on its casing suggest it was based on astronomical cycles first studied by Babylonian scholars, and its craftsmanship implies a tradition, a school of thought dedicated to building such devices. The tragic question then becomes, how much of that tradition was lost when the great library of Alexandria burned? The Antikythera Mechanism is a single, salvaged page from a vast, burned book of ancient science. It forces us to confront a humbling reality. Our modern technological confidence is built upon a fragile lineage of preserved knowledge. This artifact is a ghost, a whisper from a path not taken, proving that the spark of computational thinking, the desire to model complex systems with physical gears, was struck millennia ago. And if such delicate genius could be crafted in bronze, what might other ancient hands have achieved with the very building blocks of matter itself? The idea of a 2,000-year-old battery feels like a paradox, a piece of modern technology impossibly displaced in time. Yet in a museum in Baghdad, that is precisely what you would find. It is not a sleek cylinder of lithium, but a humble, unassuming artifact, a 6-inch tall clay jar sealed with a plug of asphalt. Inside, suspended within the jar, sits a rolled sheet of copper, and within that copper cylinder, an iron rod. This simple assembly, discovered in the 1930s in the ruins of a Parthian village, is known as the Baghdad Battery. Its construction is deceptively elegant. If the jar were filled with an acidic electrolyte, something as common as vinegar or grape juice, a chemical reaction would occur between the two different metals. Electrons would flow from the iron rod to the copper cylinder through the acidic solution, creating a small but measurable electric current around 1 volt. This is the fundamental principle of a galvanic cell, the basic unit of a battery. The official invention of the battery is credited to Alessandro Volta in the year 1800, nearly 2 millennia after this clay pot was sealed and placed in the ground. So what was it for? The complete absence of wires or any clear electrical apparatus with the find leaves its purpose shrouded in mystery, and that mystery is where the real fascination lies. One compelling theory is electroplating, the process of using an electric current to coat a common metal with a thin layer of a precious one, like gold or silver. Artisans of the Parthian and later Sasanian empires were masters of gilding, creating stunning jewelry and religious objects. Could a series of these jars, connected together to produce a stronger current, have been used to electroplate small items? Laboratory experiments have shown it is technically possible. Other suggestions point toward the numinous qualities such a device might have held. The gentle tingle of the current on the skin could have been interpreted as a spiritual or healing force used in temple rituals or early therapeutic practices. Whether it was a tool for craft, for faith, or for medicine, the inescapable fact remains: someone 2,000 years ago assembled components that we recognize today as a functional battery. They may not have understood the physics of electron flow, but they empirically discovered and perhaps utilized a phenomenon that would not be formally codified by science for centuries. This artifact challenges our timeline not with intricate gears, but with profound simplicity. It suggests that the observation and application of natural chemical principles was occurring in workshops and temples long before it entered the textbooks. It is a quiet, potent reminder that discovery is not always a loud announcement, but sometimes a silent current waiting in a clay jar, its purpose whispered away by time. And if the ancients could harness invisible energy on a small scale, What does it say about their ability to manage the colossal, visible energy of an entire city? The silent current of the Baghdad Battery speaks to a mastery of invisible forces, but true civilization is also measured by its handling of the most mundane and visible realities. In the sun-scorched plains of the Indus Valley over 4,000 years ago, an entire culture built its greatness not on grand temples or palaces, but on an idea we still struggle with today: collective cleanliness. The cities of Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa, flourishing around 2,500 years before the Common Era, were marvels of foresight. Their wide, grid-patterned streets and uniform baked brick architecture reveal a society obsessed with order, but it is what they built beneath those streets that truly echoes into our modern world. Nearly every single house, from the more modest dwellings to the larger structures, contained a dedicated bathroom. This in itself was extraordinary for its time, but the real genius lay in what happened next. Each of these bathrooms was connected to a comprehensive, city-wide network of covered drains. These were not open gutters. They were carefully constructed channels, lined with precisely fitted bricks and covered with stone slabs, running underneath the lanes and alleys. The system was designed with a sophistication that stuns modern engineers. It included gentle slopes to ensure steady flow, preventing blockages. It featured periodic manholes sealed with terracotta lids, allowing for inspection and maintenance. Waste was systematically channeled away from living quarters and out of the city, demonstrating a profound, practical understanding of the link between sanitation and public health. This was not a luxury for the elite. It was a municipal standard, a shared infrastructure that served the entire community. To appreciate how far ahead this was, consider that in many major European cities millennia later, waste was simply thrown into the streets. The elaborate sewer systems we associate with 19th-century urban renewal were, in concept and basic engineering, fully present in the Indus Valley 4,000 years prior. This reveals a societal priority that feels startlingly contemporary, a commitment to communal well-being through engineered solutions. It was a quiet, daily kind of genius, one that prioritized the health of the many over the convenience of the few. The people of these cities invested immense labor and coordination, not in monuments to gods or kings, but in a network dedicated to hygiene and order, an innovation that speaks of a profound, forward-thinking civic consciousness. Their legacy is a testament to the idea that a society's advancement can be measured by what it chooses to hide underground, in the careful, unseen channels that protect the community above. This mastery of shaping materials for public good leads us to another ancient wonder, one where the material itself seems to defy the very laws of nature. The enduring order of the Indus Valley was built from carefully shaped bricks, but what if the very glue holding a civilization together could learn from its own wounds? The Pantheon in Rome has a dome that has sheltered worshippers and awed visitors for nearly 2,000 years. It is not made of steel or reinforced with modern polymers. It is built of Roman concrete, a material so advanced that our own versions often fail to match its longevity. While contemporary concrete structures can show significant wear within 50 years, Roman harbors, aqueducts, and monumental buildings stand defiantly after millennia, battered by waves and earthquakes but refusing to fall. Their secret was not lost knowledge in a grand sense, but a specific, ingenious recipe. The Romans discovered that by mixing their standard lime mortar with a particular type of volcanic ash called pozzolana from regions like Pozzuoli, they created something extraordinary. This was not just a stronger paste. When combined with water, the lime and the fine volcanic ash underwent a slow, persistent chemical reaction, forming a dense, interlocking matrix of compounds that bound the aggregate, the rocks and rubble, into a single, incredibly cohesive mass. This pozzolanic concrete did not just resist the elements, it engaged with them, the true marvel only recently understood by scientists. is its capacity for self-repair. Tiny cracks are inevitable in any large structure over centuries. In modern concrete, these fissures allow water to seep in, freeze, expand, and worsen the damage in a relentless cycle. But in the Roman recipe, when rainwater filters through a new crack, it reacts with unused lime particles still embedded within the material. This reaction forms new, microscopic crystals of calcium carbonate, the same material as limestone, which gradually fill the gap. The concrete literally heals itself. This is not a metaphor. Researchers using advanced microscopy have watched the process happen in samples taken from ancient Roman piers. Today, material scientists are in a race to reverse engineer this ancient technology, seeking to embed similar self-activating compounds into modern concrete mixes. The goal is to create infrastructure that can maintain itself, reducing the colossal economic and environmental cost of constant repairs and rebuilds. The Romans achieved this not through a theoretical understanding of nanocrystalline growth, but through brilliant, patient empirical observation. They found a material that worked, perfected the mix through generations of practice, and built an empire upon it. Their mastery of chemistry in the service of engineering gave them a tool of permanence we are still striving to replicate. It speaks to a different relationship with time, an intention to build not for a generation, but for the ages. And if their materials could defy decay, what does it say about their ambition to capture and manipulate something as fleeting and intangible as light itself? The Pantheon's self-healing concrete was a triumph of material science, but the Roman Empire was held together by something even more fluid: information. In the bustling heart of the Forum, citizens would gather not just to trade goods, but to trade news, clustering around a daily updated public notice carved in stone or etched onto metal sheets. This was the Acta Diurna, the daily acts, instituted by Julius Caesar around 59 years before the Common Era. Think of it as the world's first daily gazette, a prototype for every newspaper and social media feed that followed. Its content was a fascinating blend of the official and the personal. One section might detail the latest decrees from the Senate or the outcomes of important trials, while another announced military victories from distant provinces. But alongside this statecraft, you would find the social pulse of the city, announcements of notable births and deaths, records of extravagant gladiatorial games, and even snippets of high society gossip. This mixture is profoundly familiar. It is the same blend of hard news and human interest that defines our modern media landscape. The system's sophistication went beyond the posting. Professional scribes would make copies of these daily bulletins, which were then dispatched across the vast Roman road network to provincial governors and interested citizens in far-flung corners of the empire. For the first time in history, a centralized, regular stream of information created a shared narrative for a massive, diverse population. It was a powerful tool for political control, certainly, shaping public opinion by highlighting certain events and omitting others. But it also served as a vital thread of social cohesion, connecting a citizen in Hispania to the rhythms of life in the capital. The Acta Diurna anticipated the core functions of journalism centuries before the printing press: to inform, to engage, and to create a sense of common identity. It reveals an ancient, acute understanding that an empire is not just built on roads and legions, but on stories, on the consistent, curated flow of information that tells people who they are and what world they live in. This early grasp of data distribution as a binding force leads us to a different but equally vital ancient challenge: not how to spread information, but how to preserve a staggering amount of it for the long term. The relentless flow of information that bound the Roman Empire together was a weapon of influence, but the Eastern Empire that succeeded it would develop a weapon of pure, terrifying physicality to ensure its survival. Constantinople's mighty walls could repel armies on land, but its greatest vulnerability was the sea. In the 7th century, as the empire faced an existential naval threat, its chemists and engineers responded with a creation so potent it became the stuff of legend: Greek fire. This was not merely an incendiary weapon, it was a psychological and tactical masterpiece. Contemporary accounts describe a horrific, sticky liquid that could be pumped through bronze tubes mounted on the prows of Byzantine warships. When ignited and projected, it would cling to the wooden hulls and sails of enemy vessels with a tenacious grip. Most terrifying of all, it burned on water. Sailors who jumped overboard to escape the flames would find the very sea around them alight, turning the waves into a liquid inferno. Attempts to douse it with water reportedly only made the fire rage more intensely, suggesting a composition that included a form of quicklime, which reacts exothermically with water, or perhaps a primitive form of naphtha or distilled petroleum. The exact formula was a state secret of unimaginable value, guarded so closely that its precise ingredients and preparation method were lost to history, dying with the last of the specialized artisans who knew its craft. This secrecy was its ultimate strength. For over 7 centuries, Greek fire served as the Byzantine navy's ultimate deterrent, a technological trump card that saved Constantinople from capture on multiple occasions. Its strategic impact cannot be overstated. It functioned as an early form of both naval artillery and a ship-mounted flamethrower, projecting destructive power at a distance and controlling the space of battle in a way that simple ramming or boarding could not. While not a direct lineal ancestor to modern petroleum-based weapons, Greek fire represents a pinnacle of ancient applied chemistry and military engineering. It was a weapon born from a deep, empirical understanding of combustible materials and their delivery, a tool of such decisive power that it single-handedly reshaped the naval warfare of its era and preserved a civilization. This mastery of destructive force for defense finds a profound counterpoint in an ancient society that sought not to wield the Earth's power in battle, but to listen to its warnings and protect its people from a far greater, impersonal threat. The terrifying power of Greek fire was a deliberate act of control over nature's destructive potential. But what if the goal was not to command such forces, but to listen to their faintest whispers? In the year 132, in the Grand Court of China's Han Dynasty, the scholar Zhang Heng presented an object of startling beauty and purpose. It was a large, ornate bronze vessel standing over 6 feet tall. Around its circumference, 8 dragon heads gazed outward, each holding a bronze ball in its jaws. Crouched below each dragon sat a corresponding bronze toad, its mouth open in anticipation. This was not a ceremonial sculpture, but a machine of profound sensitivity, the Hufeng Didongyi, the world's first seismoscope. Its principle was one of elegant simplicity. Inside the sealed vessel, Zhang Heng suspended a heavy inverted pendulum. When the faintest tremor from a distant earthquake traveled through the ground, it would disturb this pendulum. The motion would trigger a clever series of internal levers, causing only the dragon facing the direction of the quake's epicenter to release its ball. The clatter of bronze into bronze as the ball landed in the toad's mouth was both an alarm and a data point. Historical records from the era tell of an instance where the device activated, its western dragon dropping its ball, though no local shaking was felt. Days later, a messenger arrived from a region hundreds of miles to the west, reporting a devastating earthquake. The court was astonished. Zhang Heng's device had detected seismic waves, what we now call P waves, which travel faster and arrive before the more destructive shaking. This was not magic or portent, it was mechanical observation. The seismoscope represented a monumental shift in thinking. It moved the understanding of earthquakes from the realm of supernatural omens, the anger of gods, or the stirring of mythical creatures into the domain of natural, measurable phenomena. It was an instrument, a tool for gathering objective information about the world. In that single, resonant clang of a bronze ball, we hear the birth of empirical Earth science. The device anticipated the core function of modern seismographs by over 1,500 years, not through electronic sensors, but through a masterful understanding of balance, motion, and cause and effect. Zhang Heng, an astronomer, mathematician, and poet, had built a mechanical ear to listen to the planet itself. This desire to measure the immeasurable, to find direction in chaos, finds a parallel in another ancient quest: the need to know one's precise location when all visible landmarks have vanished beneath a vast and empty sea. Zhang Heng's seismoscope listened for the deep tremors of the Earth, but to cross the trackless ocean required a way to see the unseen. The Norse sagas, those epic poems of exploration and conquest, speak not just of longships and warriors, but of a navigator's secret, the Solarstein, the Sunstone. In tales of voyages across the North Atlantic, through perpetual fog and the long gloom of northern winters, heroes are described using a magical crystal to locate the hidden sun. For centuries, this was dismissed as pure myth, a fanciful metaphor for skill. Then, researchers began to ask a practical question. How did the Vikings consistently navigate from Norway to Greenland, a journey of over 1,500 miles of open ocean without a magnetic compass, often under completely overcast skies? The answer may lie not in magic, but in a brilliant understanding of light itself. The sunstone was likely a naturally occurring crystal, such as calcite or cordierite. These minerals possess a fascinating optical property called pleochroism, or double refraction. When you look through such a crystal, you see two overlapping images of whatever is behind it. But here is the key: the intensity of these twin images changes depending on the crystal's orientation relative to the polarization of light. Sunlight becomes polarized as it scatters through the atmosphere, creating a subtle pattern in the sky that is invisible to our eyes but consistent. A skilled navigator would hold the sunstone up to the overcast sky and slowly rotate it. They would watch the two faint light patterns within the stone, waiting for the moment they matched in brightness and clarity. That specific alignment pointed directly to the sun's position, even if it was completely obscured behind a blanket of cloud. It was a primitive yet astonishingly effective optical compass, a tool that turned an invisible property of physics into a visible guide. This was not guesswork, it was applied mineralogy. It allowed Viking sailors to determine their cardinal direction at any time of day, provided there was even a diffused glow in the sky. This innovation speaks to a profound, empirical relationship with the natural world. They learned to read the subtle language of light in a way modern science would only formally explain a millennium later. In essence, the sunstone was a precursor to the polarized filters pilots used to cut through glare, and it embodies the same fundamental principle of celestial navigation that guides modern satellites. It represents a different kind of vision, one that looked past the obvious to harness a hidden signal for survival. This same blend of acute observation and practical application would be needed for a far more intimate and delicate challenge, not navigating the open sea, but navigating the hidden pathways of the human body. The Viking Sunstone revealed a hidden path through light, but ancient surgeons in India were learning to chart a different kind of map, one that redrew the human face itself. Medical knowledge in the ancient world is often imagined as a realm of herbal remedies and spiritual incantations, but a text from around 600 years before the Common Era presents something startlingly different: a precise, step-by-step manual for reconstructive surgery. The Sushruta Samhita, attributed to the physician Sushruta, is a monumental work of Indian medicine. Within its detailed chapters on anatomy, diagnosis, and treatment, it describes a procedure of remarkable sophistication: rhinoplasty, the surgical reconstruction of the nose. The context for this innovation was sadly a common one. In that era, the removal of the nose was sometimes used as a judicial punishment. The loss was not merely cosmetic, It was a profound social and physical hardship affecting breathing and identity. The medical response, however, was one of brilliant compassion and technical ingenuity. The text outlines what became known as the Indian method. The surgeon would take a living flap of skin, still partially attached to its blood supply, from the patient's own cheek or forehead. This flap was then carefully rotated and grafted onto the remaining nasal stump. To ensure the new nose would be functional, the instructions specify placing 2 polished tubes, likely made from reed or wood, into the position of the nostrils to maintain their shape and airway during the delicate healing process. Consider the profound understanding this implies. The surgeons knew the graft needed a continuous blood supply to survive, a principle of tissue viability that is foundational to modern plastic and reconstructive surgery. They considered both form and function, aiming for a cosmetic outcome that restored the individual's appearance and their ability to breathe normally. This was not emergency medicine. It was elective, restorative surgery with an eye toward the patient's future quality of life. The procedure demonstrates a hands-on, practical mastery of human anatomy and surgical technique that feels centuries ahead of its time. While such practices were documented and refined in India for generations, this knowledge remained largely isolated from the Western world. It would not be until the 15th and 16th centuries, when European surgeons encountered these techniques through trade and colonial contact, that the principles were rediscovered and integrated into Western medicine, often to the astonishment of physicians who considered them a new discovery. This ancient foresight in medicine speaks to a culture that viewed the human body not as a sacred mystery beyond intervention, but as a system that could be studied, understood, and skillfully repaired. It was a quiet, profound kind of engineering, applied to living flesh and bone. And if such delicate manual artistry could be perfected millennia ago, it challenges us to wonder what other forms of intricate, automated craftsmanship might have been possible in the ancient workshop. The delicate artistry of ancient surgery required a steady human hand, but in the workshops of Alexandria, another kind of hand was being imagined, one made of bronze and powered by steam. In the 1st century, the Greek engineer Heron of Alexandria was sketching devices that feel less like ancient tools and more like wonders from a forgotten future. His mind was a playground of practical physics, and his creations were designed to astonish. He built automated temple doors that would swing open seemingly by divine will when a priest lit a fire at an altar. The mechanism hidden within was a simple, brilliant steam engine. The heat expanded air in a sealed vessel, forcing water into a bucket, whose weight, dropping, pulled ropes to turn the doors on their pivots. It was theater, a spectacle to inspire awe, but the principles at work were profoundly real. He crafted a wind-powered organ that played music by itself, and even a coin-operated machine that dispensed a measure of holy water, arguably the world's first vending machine. These were not built for industry or transport. They were automata designed for delight and demonstration, yet within that playful spirit lay a thunderclap of potential. Heron's most famous device, the eolipile, was a hollow metal sphere mounted to spin on a pair of pipes. When water in a base was heated, steam rushed up the pipes and escaped through 2 bent nozzles on the sphere. The force of the escaping jets caused the sphere to whirl rapidly, a mesmerizing dance of metal and vapor. This was a primitive but perfectly functional steam turbine, a clear demonstration of the principle of action and reaction that would much later propel the industrial age. Heron understood the power of steam, but in his world, there was no economic or social imperative to scale it up for factories or locomotives. Labor was abundant, and the concept of mechanized production was simply not the goal. His inventions remained brilliant curiosities, marvels for the temple or the royal garden, their potential lying dormant. They represent a path of technological development focused not on efficiency, but on wonder, on the pure joy of making the inanimate move as if by magic. Heron's work proves that the core ideas of automation and steam power were not only conceivable, but were physically constructed over 1,700 years before they would reshape the world. His legacy is a poignant reminder that innovation requires not just a brilliant mind, but a world ready to ask the right questions of it. And if such mechanical ingenuity could be directed toward earthly wonders, how much more astonishing were the celestial calculations being performed with nothing but shadow and stone. Heron's playful automata were marvels of the engineered moment, but another ancient object sought to capture something eternal. In a forest in central Germany, treasure hunters with illegal metal detectors made a discovery that would rewrite our understanding of the European Bronze Age. They unearthed a disc of bronze about the size of a dinner plate, dark with age and adorned with mysterious gold symbols. This is the Nebra Sky Disc, dated to around 1,600 years before the Common Era, and it is considered the oldest known portable representation of the cosmos in the world. The artifact is breathtaking in its ambition, against a deep blue-green patina, likely once a vivid night sky black. Gold appliques depict a crescent moon, a full sun or perhaps a full moon, and a scattering of 32 stars. One cluster of 7 stars is widely interpreted as the Pleiades, a prominent constellation known across ancient cultures, but the true genius of the disk lies in its edges. 2 graceful arcs of gold were later added, one on each side, which precisely mark the solstice points the furthest rising and setting positions of the sun on the horizon throughout the year. A final addition, a curved band at the bottom often called the sun boat, may represent the mythological vessel that carried the sun through the underworld at night. This was not merely a piece of jewelry or a religious icon. It was a sophisticated instrument, a Bronze Age analog computer for understanding time. By aligning the disk with the actual horizon and the moving celestial bodies, a community could track the seasons. The appearance of the Pleiades at certain times was, for many ancient agricultural societies, a signal for planting or harvesting. The solstice markers would indicate the turning points of the year, the longest and shortest days, critical for seasonal rituals and planning. Think of it as a permanent physical calendar and an observational aid all in one. It transformed the vast, overwhelming dome of the sky into a manageable, handheld interface. This small disk of bronze and gold tells us that nearly 4,000 years ago, people in the heart of Europe were not just gazing at the stars in wonder. They were systematically recording their movements, encoding that knowledge into metal, and using it to structure their lives in harmony with the cosmos. It is a stunning fusion of art, precise observation, and practical science, a precursor to the planispheres and astrolabes that navigators would use millennia later. In its elegant synthesis, the Nebra Sky Disc foreshadows our own most advanced data visualization techniques, the desire to take a complex, dynamic system and represent it in a static form we can hold, study, and understand. It reminds us that the drive to map the heavens to find our place in time is a human impulse as old as metalworking itself, and if a single culture could create such a precise model of celestial cycles, it begs the question of what other cycles they might have sought to measure, perhaps even within the very pulse of a living creature. The Nebra Sky Disc mapped the heavens with breathtaking precision, but another ancient object presents a map we still cannot read. In the ruins of the Minoan palace of Phaistos on Crete, archaeologists found a simple clay disc barely 6 inches across. It dates to the 2nd millennium before the Common Era, and its surface holds a mystery that has defied translation for over a century. On both sides, a continuous spiral of strange, stamped symbols winds from the edge to the center. There are 241 impressions in total, made by pressing 45 distinct seals into the soft clay before it was fired. This is the Phaistos Disc, and its enigma is not just in what it says, but in how it was made. Those 45 unique symbols were not carved by hand onto this specific disc. They were created with reusable stamps, each carefully crafted to imprint its own design. This is a revolutionary concept. Someone, over 3,500 years ago, created a set of movable type. They arranged these symbols in a deliberate sequence, stamped them onto a portable clay medium, and then fired it to permanence. Whether the message was a hymn, a treaty, a story, or a set of instructions, the method itself is what echoes through time. The disc is not a one-off inscription, it is a manufactured record. It represents the very idea of data storage, of encoding complex information into a fixed physical form that can be carried, preserved, and potentially replicated. Think of it as a prehistoric flash drive, its data locked in a symbolic code we have lost the key to. Scholars have proposed countless theories, from a religious text to a geometric puzzle, but the meaning remains elusive. This only deepens its technological significance. The Minoan creator was not just writing, they were building a system. They standardized symbols, they devised a method for their assembly, and they chose a durable medium. This foreshadows the core principles of printing, where reusable type is arranged to convey a message, and of digital storage, where information is reduced to a coded sequence of symbols. The Phaistos Disc stands as a haunting prototype. It is a testament to the human desire not just to record, but to systematize recording, to find a way to make information both permanent and portable. Its silent spiral of symbols is a powerful reminder that the drive to encode our thoughts into lasting form is an ancient one, and that some of our most sophisticated concepts have roots in the fired clay of the Bronze Age. This mastery of encoding physical data leads us to wonder about a different kind of ancient system, one designed not to store information, but to harness a fundamental force of nature. The silent code of the Phaistos Disc speaks of a system for preserving thought, but deep within an Egyptian temple, a carved image has sparked a debate about a very different kind of ancient system, one that might have produced light. In the crypts of the Temple of Hathor at Dendera, stone walls are adorned with a series of strange and captivating reliefs. They show large, bulbous objects, each containing a snake-like form stretching from a lotus flower at its base to a small box held by a kneeling figure. A cable seems to connect the box to a towering jed pillar, the ancient Egyptian symbol for stability. To some modern eyes, the resemblance is startling. It looks uncannily like a giant light bulb, complete with a filament and electrical wiring. This interpretation has fueled sensational claims of ancient electricity, suggesting the Egyptians possessed advanced technology lost to time. Mainstream Egyptology, however, offers a different, deeply symbolic reading. Scholars identify these scenes as mythological representations, showing the creation of the sun god from a lotus blossom emerging from the primordial waters, with the serpent representing divine power and the jed pillar providing cosmic support. It is a story carved in stone, not a technical diagram. Yet, the very intensity of this controversy points to a deeper, more practical mystery that is beyond dispute. How did the artisans of ancient Egypt achieve their breathtakingly precise and intricate carvings, not on sunlit walls, but in the pitch-black depths of tombs like those in the Valley of the Kings, or in the windowless inner sanctuaries of their massive temples? They were quite literally working in the dark. Their solution may not have been electric bulbs, but it was a masterpiece of optical engineering. Evidence suggests they used highly polished sheets of copper or silver as mirrors. These would be strategically placed to catch sunlight from an entrance or a vertical shaft and bounce it, relay style, through a series of corridors and down into the underground chambers, casting a direct beam onto the workspace. For finer, sustained work, they likely employed specially designed oil lamps. These were not the smoky, flickering torches of popular imagination. Archaeologists have found lamps with multiple wicks and sophisticated shapes that would have provided a cleaner, steadier flame, and residues suggest they may have used fuels like sesame or castor oil that burned with less soot. Some tomb paintings even show workers using what appear to be portable, reflective bowls filled with salt to amplify the light from a single lamp. This was a profound conquest of darkness. It was a systematic, clever application of physics and chemistry to manipulate light, transforming impossible working conditions into illuminated studios. The drive to push back the night, to see and create where nature provided no light, is a fundamental thread in human innovation. Whether through mirrored sunlight or refined lamplight, the ancient Egyptians were solving the same core problem that Thomas Edison would address millennia later. Their methods were different, but the ambition was identical: to extend human activity and artistry beyond the reach of the sun. This mastery of the physical environment, of shaping light and space, finds a parallel in another ancient wonder that suggests they were also masters of shaping something even more intangible: the very sound of their sacred spaces. The ancient Egyptians conquered darkness to shape sacred space, but what if the very stones of a temple could shape sound itself? Deep beneath the island of Malta, a silent, subterranean world holds an acoustic secret that has echoed for over 5,000 years. The Hypogeum of Hal Saflieni is not a cave. It is a sprawling, multi-level temple complex carved entirely from the living limestone by Neolithic builders, a place of ceremony and memorial dating from around 3,600 to 2,500 years before the Common Era. Its shadowed chambers and winding passages are a marvel of prehistoric engineering, but to step inside and speak is to encounter something far more profound. The architecture here does not just enclose space, it actively sculpts sound. In one particular room, known today as the Oracle Room, a phenomenon occurs. When a man chants at a specific low frequency, around 110 Hz, the entire room seems to awaken. The sound does not merely echo, it amplifies and resonates, vibrating through the stone and filling the space with a palpable, physical hum that can be felt in the chest. This is not an accident of geology. The dimensions of the chamber, the curvature of its walls, and the specific niche carved into one side are all precisely tuned to create this resonant effect. Modern acoustic studies confirm that this frequency, 110 Hz, falls within a range known to affect human brainwave patterns. It can promote a shift in consciousness, potentially inducing states of deep calm or heightened focus, a trance-like condition often sought in ritual contexts. The builders of the Hypogeum, working millennia before the science of acoustics was formalized, had discovered through patient observation and experimentation how to build a room that could literally alter the mind. They engineered an environment where architecture and sound worked in concert to create a specific, powerful sensory experience for those gathered within. This represents a pre-scientific mastery of resonance, the principle that a space can vibrate sympathetically with a sound wave, amplifying it dramatically. It is the same principle that guides acoustic engineers today when they design concert halls to carry the nuance of a violin or the power of a symphony without distortion. At the Hypogeum, the goal was not musical clarity but spiritual transformation. The very stones were part of the ritual technology, a tool for channeling human voice into an immersive physiological event. This ancient artistry in manipulating physical forces for communal experience reveals a sophistication that extends beyond grand monuments into the intimate realm of perception itself. It shows that long before blueprints and equations, there were builders who listened to the world with exquisite care and learned to make the rock sing. The resonant stones of the Hypogeum shaped sound for the spirit, but in the forges of ancient India and Syria, smiths were shaping the very grain of metal for the battlefield. The legendary swords of Damascus were not merely weapons, they were spoken of with a reverence bordering on myth. Warriors and chroniclers described blades of impossible sharpness that could slice a silk scarf floating on air, yet were strong enough to bend nearly double without breaking. Their most haunting feature was the surface itself, a swirling, watery pattern like wood grain or rippling silk known as damask. This beauty was not decoration, it was the signature of a material science miracle. The secret lay in the raw material, an ingot of steel called woots, produced in southern India as early as 300 years before the Common Era. These ingots were the starting point for a forging process so precise it bordered on alchemy. The smiths would heat, hammer, and fold the steel in a meticulous, controlled cycle, but the true magic happened during the slow cooling. This critical step allowed extraordinary microscopic structures to form within the metal. Using modern tools like electron microscopes, scientists have peered into samples of these ancient blades and made a stunning discovery. Embedded within the steel are carbon nanotubes and chains of cementite, a hard iron-carbon compound arranged as nanowires. These are not accidental impurities. They are sophisticated nanostructures engineered through process, not theory. The carbon nanotubes, incredibly strong cylinders of carbon atoms, provided resilience, while the cementite nanowires contributed supreme hardness. This nano-reinforced matrix is what gave Damascus steel its legendary combination of sharpness, flexibility, and durability. The smiths of antiquity had no concept of molecules or nanotechnology. They worked from generations of accumulated, hands-on knowledge, reading the color of the metal in the fire, the sound of the hammer, and the feel of the grindstone. Through patient, empirical mastery, they discovered a recipe of heat, time, and technique that could coax these extraordinary structures into being. It was a pinnacle of ancient materials engineering, where art and science were indistinguishable. The loss of this knowledge centuries later, likely due to the depletion of specific ore sources and the breakdown of the intricate trade and craft networks that sustained it, is one of history's great technological silences. We can analyze the result today, but we cannot perfectly recreate the process that made it. Like the self-healing Roman concrete or the exact formula for Greek fire, Damascus steel stands as a monument to a peak of human ingenuity that was reached, celebrated, and then, through the fragile threads of tradition, allowed to fade from the world. It reminds us that some of our most advanced modern ambitions, to engineer materials at the molecular level, had a precursor in the smoky forges of the ancient world, where the goal was not to build a microchip, but to forge the perfect blade. The Damascus blade was forged in fire and folded to perfection, but in the quiet halls of a Roman villa, a different kind of masterpiece awaited the light. On the surface, it is a cup, a vessel for wine carved from a single block of glass in the 4th century. It depicts the mythological king Lycurgus ensnared by vines, a scene of triumph and punishment. But its true magic is not in the story it tells, but in the story it reveals about light itself. Held under ordinary front-lit conditions, the cup glows a deep, solid jade green. Yet bring a light source behind it, a candle, a lamp, and the entire vessel undergoes a miraculous transformation. The opaque green vanishes, replaced by a luminous, translucent ruby red, as if the glass itself has caught fire from within. This is not a trick of the eye or a simple stain. It is a phenomenon called dichroism, and its cause remained a beautiful mystery for over 1600 years. Modern scientists, armed with electron microscopes, finally peered into the glass and found the secret. The Roman artisans, whether by brilliant design or incredibly fortunate accident, had infused the glass with an unimaginably fine powder of gold and silver. But this was no coarse glitter. The metal particles were ground to a size of roughly 70 nanometers across a nanometer being 1/1000th of a meter. At this microscopic scale, the particles cease to behave like solid metal and instead interact with light in a quantum dance. They selectively scatter green light when illuminated from the front, giving the cup its jade color. But when light passes through from behind, They allow red wavelengths to transmit, creating that stunning crimson glow. This is colloidal chemistry, the suspension of ultra-fine particles in a medium, and it is a foundational technique in modern nanotechnology. The Romans had no concept of nanoparticles or quantum effects. What they possessed was an empirical, workshop mastery of materials. They likely discovered the effect by accident, perhaps from using metal-contaminated sands or from ritualistic additions of gold and silver dust to ceremonial glass. The staggering achievement is that they then gained enough control over the process to produce it consistently in an object of such elaborate and precise craftsmanship. The Lycurgus Cup is not a crude experiment. It is a finished luxury item implying a tradition, a set of recipes passed between master glassmakers. It stands as a physical prophecy, a demonstration that the manipulation of matter at an almost invisible scale was not only possible in antiquity, but was being used to create objects of awe and wonder. It whispers that the path to our modern nano-engineered materials, from medical diagnostics to sunscreens, was glimpsed in the flickering firelight of a Roman workshop, where artisans turned metal and sand into a cup that could hold two different worlds of color. The Lycurgus Cup manipulated light at a scale invisible to the eye, but another ancient invention sought to master direction on a grand, physical scale. In the courts of ancient China during the era of the Three Kingdoms around the 3rd century, a remarkable vehicle would make its appearance. It was a two-wheeled chariot, and upon its roof stood a small, ornate figure of a man. His outstretched arm did not waver. No matter how the chariot twisted and turned through the palace courtyards, through complex maneuvers or complete circles, the figure's hand pointed unerringly to the south. This was the South-Pointing Chariot, and its constancy was not magic, nor was it a simple magnetic compass. It was a triumph of mechanical computation. Inside the carriage, hidden from view, was a labyrinth of interlocking gears. The system's brilliance lay in its use of what we now call differential gearing. As the chariot's two wheels turned, their rotations were transmitted through this precise gear train. When the chariot moved in a straight line, both wheels turned at the same rate, and the gears moved in unison, keeping the figure stationary. But when the chariot turned, the wheels would rotate at different speeds, the outer wheel covering more ground than the inner one. The differential gear assembly automatically measured and compensated for this difference, applying a counter-rotation to the figure on top. This adjustment kept the figurine's orientation perfectly fixed relative to the starting point, making it appear to defy the chariot's every twist. Think of it as a purely mechanical analog computer, programmed with one instruction: maintain heading. It solved a complex real-world problem, tracking absolute direction through a system of levers and cogs, independent of the stars, the sun, or any magnetic field. While likely used more for imperial ceremony and display than for practical navigation, its significance is profound. The South-Pointing Chariot embodies the concept of an inertial guidance system. It maintained a fixed reference point based solely on its own internal mechanics and the movement of its wheels, a principle that would become foundational for modern vehicle differentials and, much later, the sophisticated inertial navigation systems that guide aircraft and spacecraft. This was not just a clever toy, it was a physical manifestation of a desire for unwavering consistency in a changing world. The chariot's silent, gear-driven certainty mirrored the same ambition for resilience seen in ancient urban planning, a mechanical echo of the desire to build systems that could maintain their course, their function, and their order, no matter what forces tried to turn them aside. It stands as a testament to a form of genius that sought to encode a fundamental truth: the constancy of direction into the turning of bronze wheels. The South-Pointing Chariot used gears to find its way, but another ancient system used a far more fundamental force to sustain entire civilizations in the desert. Beneath the arid plains of ancient Persia, a hidden river flows in silence. This is not a river of legend, but one of the most brilliant and enduring feats of hydraulic engineering ever conceived, the Qanat. Originating over 3,000 years ago, this was not a grand, arched aqueduct marching across the landscape. Its genius lay in its invisibility. To build a Qanat, engineers first located a water-bearing layer, an aquifer, at the foothills of a mountain. From a point far downstream where the water was needed, they would begin digging a gently sloping underground tunnel back toward that source, a subterranean channel that could stretch for dozens of miles. The slope was everything just steep enough to let gravity pull the water along, but shallow enough to prevent erosion and maintain a steady, manageable flow. At regular intervals, vertical shafts were dug from the surface down to the tunnel, creating a line of circular wells across the desert floor. These served as access points for the initial construction, hauling out excavated earth, and for the perpetual maintenance that kept the channel clear. The result was a self-regulating, sustainable water supply system of astonishing elegance. By being entirely underground, the Qanat solved multiple critical problems at once. In the blistering desert heat, it eliminated the catastrophic water loss from evaporation that would have crippled an open canal. It protected the water from contamination and from the blowing sands that could quickly fill a surface ditch. It delivered cool, clean water directly to the heart of a settlement or to the roots of farmland, purely through the silent, constant pull of gravity. This was not a technology of conquest, but one of profound adaptation. It allowed cities and agriculture to flourish in landscapes that otherwise offered only hardship, turning barren valleys into lush, productive oases. The true testament to its perfection is that many of these ancient systems are still in use today across Iran and other arid regions, having provided a reliable water source for countless generations. In its quiet, efficient design, the Qanat anticipated the core principles of modern sustainable water management, harnessing gravity for energy-free transport, minimizing environmental impact through subsurface construction, and creating a resilient system that could endure for millennia. It represents a philosophy of working with the landscape, not against it, to solve the fundamental challenge of resource scarcity. This same challenge of managing scarce resources for the good of a community would soon require a different kind of invention, one that moved not water but value itself. The silent, gravity-fed water of the Qanat nourished cities, but commerce needs more than sustenance. It requires trust between strangers separated by time and distance. In the bustling merchant quarters of ancient Mesopotamia, that trust was baked into clay. Long before paper, ink, or digital signatures, the foundational agreements of civilization were being pressed into wet tablets with a reed stylus. This was cuneiform, the world's first writing system, and its earliest and most prolific use was not for poetry or king's lists, but for business. These small, palm-sized clay tablets were the contracts, receipts, and ledgers of their day. A typical tablet might record a loan of barley from a temple to a farmer, specifying the exact amount to be repaid after the harvest, plus an agreed-upon interest. Another might detail a partnership between two merchants funding a caravan to a distant city, listing each investor's share of the goods and the promised division of profits. The information was meticulous: quantities, dates, interest rates, and the names of witnesses, all rendered in those distinctive wedge-shaped marks. But the innovation went beyond mere recording. To protect the integrity of the agreement, a scribe would often take the completed contract tablet and encase it in a fresh, soft layer of clay, creating a sealed envelope. On the outside of this envelope, they would inscribe a duplicate or a summary of the inner document's contents. Once dried or fired, this created a tamper-proof record. If a dispute arose, the outer shell could be broken open to reveal the original, unchanged text inside, proving whether the terms had been altered. this was more than clever filing. It was a legal and institutional revolution. These tablets transformed verbal promises into permanent, verifiable obligations. They enabled credit, they enforced partnership agreements, and they created a stable framework for economic risk and reward. A merchant in Ur could enter into a binding contract with a supplier in far-off Dilmun, knowing the record was immutable and stored in a temple or palace archive. This system provided the predictability necessary for long-distance trade networks to flourish, weaving together the economies of entire regions. In essence, these clay tablets performed all the core functions of a modern legal contract, an accounting ledger, and a notarized document. They were the hard drive of the Bronze Age economy, the unchangeable code upon which complex society ran. This institutionalization of trust through recorded agreement is a technology so fundamental we often overlook it. It anticipates not only written law and double-entry bookkeeping, but the very concept of blockchain, a decentralized, tamper-resistant ledger of transactions. The Mesopotamians built the first framework for a sophisticated economy not with coinage, but with words baked in clay, proving that the architecture of commerce is one of humanity's oldest and most vital inventions. And as they were codifying the rules of trade, a different kind of rule was being discovered, a mathematical principle that would govern everything from art to architecture to the very proportions of life itself. While the Mesopotamians were encoding economic trust in clay, a Greek inventor was solving a more visceral problem, the relentless, back-breaking labor of moving water. Attributed to the genius of Archimedes in the 3rd century before the Common Era, the device that bears his name is a masterpiece of elegant physics. Picture a broad screw, a helix turning snugly within a hollow cylinder. One end sits in a lower water source, a river or a flooded field. As a worker, or later a wind-powered mechanism, turns the crank, the rotating spiral scoops up pockets of water, lifting them steadily along the tube's incline until they spill out at the top into a waiting irrigation channel. There are no valves to clog, no complex pistons to fail. The motion is continuous, gentle, and astonishingly effective. Its impact was immediate and transformative. For farmers, it meant reliable irrigation for crops on higher ground, turning marginal land into productive fields. For miners and builders, it offered a way to drain water from deep pits and foundations, work that would have otherwise been impossible. The screw did not just move water, it moved possibility. What is truly remarkable, however, is not its ancient origin, but its enduring presence. The fundamental design of the Archimedes screw has never been improved upon because it cannot be simplified further. It is a solution so perfectly aligned with the problem and the laws of physics that it remains in widespread use today. You will find modern versions, often crafted from durable polymers and powered by electric motors, lifting water in farms across the globe, moving granular materials like grain or powder in factories, and even serving in wastewater treatment facilities to lift sewage with minimal clogging. It is a quiet, humming testament to a 3,000-year-old idea that still does its job flawlessly. In a world obsessed with planned obsolescence and constant upgrades, the Archimedes screw stands apart. It represents a different kind of technological triumph, one defined not by complexity but by resilient, elegant simplicity. It solved a fundamental human need to command the flow of water, with a principle so sound that time has not rendered it obsolete, only confirmed its genius. This unbroken thread of utility connects every innovation we have explored, from the cosmic computer to the self-healing concrete, revealing a timeless truth. The most profound advancements are often those that marry deep understanding with purposeful, enduring design. The Archimedes screw turns today just as it did in the time of Archimedes, a perfect union of idea and need. This is the thread that binds all 20 innovations together. From the celestial computer of Antikythera to the silent water channels beneath Mohenjo-Daro, a single, profound truth comes into focus. Human ingenuity, when faced with a universal challenge, whether it is finding direction, securing clean water, healing a wound, or preserving a story, tends to walk down remarkably similar conceptual pathways, no matter how many centuries lie between the travelers. The Roman concrete that heals itself and the Damascus steel forged with nanotechnology were not magical leaps from the future. They were the brilliant, logical products of their own eras, born from generations of patient observation, relentless trial and error, and the specific, pressing demands of their societies. A Greek engineer watching steam spin a metal sphere was exploring the same physical principle that would later drive turbines, just as a Viking navigator reading polarized light in a crystal was applying the same fundamental optics a modern pilot relies on. What feels modern about these objects is not an anachronism but a reflection. We recognize our own logical fingerprints in their design. This realization quietly dismantles a comforting story we often tell ourselves, the myth of a straight, upward march of progress, where we stand at the pinnacle of a long, slow climb. The evidence suggests something far more interesting, a story of parallel development, of brilliant flashes of insight that flare up in isolated cultures, sometimes fading for centuries before being independently rediscovered. The Baghdad Battery was a functional galvanic cell, then the knowledge receded and Volta built one again. The precision surgery described in ancient India was forgotten in the West, only to be relearned much later. This pattern invites us to see ancient cultures not as primitive stepping stones, but as sophisticated, complete repositories of knowledge. They were asking profound questions and arriving at astonishing answers, building vast libraries of understanding, some written on papyrus, some encoded in gears, and some baked into the very recipe of their concrete. Their world was not a simpler one awaiting our complexity. It was a different kind of complex with its own advanced peaks and valleys. This perspective is ultimately a humbling gift. It asks us to consider our own technological civilization not as a final destination, but as another chapter in this long, cyclical conversation with the physical world. What knowledge are we building today that might seem like a miraculous flash of insight to a future civilization, only for them to discover its blueprint was already here, waiting in the silent language of ancient stone, metal, and clay? The computational gears of Greece and the nanostructures in a Roman cup are not anomalies but signposts. They point to a history of human ingenuity that is far deeper and more technologically adventurous than any single timeline can contain. These 20 innovations were not magic, nor were they gifts from lost civilizations or otherworldly visitors. They were the logical, brilliant outcomes of human minds working within their own advanced frameworks, driven by universal needs and an insatiable curiosity about the world. Our ancestors looked at the stars and built a computer to model their dance. They held a clay jar and discovered an electric current. They mixed volcanic ash with lime and created a stone that could heal its own wounds. This is not the work of primitive people, but of sophisticated engineers, artisans, and thinkers whose legacy has been quietly waiting for us to recognize it. Their achievements force a profound shift in perspective. We are not the first to think computationally, to manipulate matter at a microscopic scale, or to dream of automation. We are simply the latest inheritors of a spark that has always burned within us, the drive to solve, to build, to understand. This is the true constant of the human story. Standing on the shoulders of these ancient giants should inspire both wonder and a deep humility. It asks us to look at our own world with fresh eyes. What marvels of our age, our smartphones, our satellites, our medical breakthroughs might be unearthed by a future civilization who will marvel at how we, too, grasp the fundamental threads of the universe. Our journey today is a reminder that every era has its own pinnacle of genius. its own quiet revolutions that fade into the background of time. If this exploration of lost foresight has reshaped your view of the past, consider subscribing for more journeys into the mysteries history has left behind. Let us know in the comments which of these ancient innovations left you the most amazed.